From the time that I was very small,
Thank you, Nick. Finally, gentlemen, as you've heard, I'm your Boys State Director, Brad Lear. Okay? And one of my chief responsibilities is to ensure that every night from this stage, you're having an opportunity to engage with someone who's important to our public discourse. And I've got to tell you, there's times when that job can be hard. Okay? As you know, in our modern world, there's a lot of noise, right? There's no shortage of people who have an opinion that they want to share. So how do I decide who's worthy of our stage, who you need to hear from? Well, what I do is I follow the advice of one of our great presidents, Teddy Roosevelt, who left us with some wise words, and if you'll indulge me, I'd like to read them to you because I think they should be a touchstone for how you approach this week. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end that the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly. So that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. Gentlemen, your place is in the arena. Okay? And tonight, you'll hear from a man who has spent his life in service of his state and of our country, a life lived in the arena. Gentlemen, tonight, we are incredibly privileged to enjoy a conversation with Senator Jack Danforth. And to lead that conversation is our Dean of the Campaign and Political Operations School. He's a graduate of Harvard University, received his PhD from the University of Southern California, and is a veteran of hundreds of campaigns for governor, Congress, Senate, and president. But his first job in politics, when he was no older than you, was stuffing envelopes for Jack Danforth when he successfully ran for U.S. Senate in 1976. Please welcome to the stage Professor Steve Grant. Thank you for being with us, Steve. And now for our guest of honor. Senator Jack Danforth was born in St. Louis, Missouri, where he attended high school at St. Louis Country Day. He then went on to attend Princeton University, Yale Law School, and Yale Divinity School. In 1968, he was elected Missouri's 37th Attorney General, the first member of his party to be elected to that office in 40 years. And then in 1976, he was elected to represent the state of Missouri in the United States Senate, where he served a full 3 terms, spearheading legislation in the areas of international trade, telecommunications, health care, research and development, transportation, and civil rights. In 2001, President Bush appointed Senator Danforth as Special Envoy to Sudan, and in 2004, he represented the United States as its ambassador to the United Nations. While at the UN, Senator Danforth focused on ending the civil war in Sudan, which was a 20-year conflict. It killed 2 million people and displaced 5 million others. And as a result of his work, a peace agreement between the two sides was ultimately signed in Nairobi, Kenya on January 9, 2005. Senator Danforth is also an ordained Episcopal priest and has authored numerous books on the topics of religion and American politics. He continues to work in the St. Louis community as a partner at the law firm of Dow Bennett. He still serves on numerous boards, including the John C. Danforth Center on Religion and Politics at Washington University. Gentlemen, I could go on, but you don't need to take it from me. Let's watch a short video together that gives you just a taste of the impact on Jack Danforth's work on behalf of our state and our nation.
From the time that I was very small, I was taught that life is more than acquiring things. Life is a matter of contributing something, and that has been the reason for my career in public life.
A career that began in 1968 as Missouri's Attorney General, the first Republican elected to statewide office in more than 2 decades, revitalizing the Grand Old Party and launching a new generation of conservative leaders, serving his country and state for more than 40 years. John C. Danforth was born with leadership in his blood, the son of a great Missouri family with roots that reach back 5 generations, stretching from the Boot Heel to the state's largest metropolitan area. He attended high school at St. Louis Country Day, went on to Princeton University, then Yale Law and Divinity Schools, became a lawyer, and was ordained an Episcopalian minister. Jack entered politics for the right reasons: a sense of duty, a call to service, a desire to give back to the community, state, and nation he loved. In 1976, Jack was elected to the United States Senate, even as others of his party faced difficult political environments in the wake of the Watergate scandal. Principled and effective, he would leave a lasting mark on our state. He fought for free and fair international trade, civil rights, tax credits to spur innovation and job creation, and a conservative judicial system that interpreted the law instead of creating it. Upon his retirement from the Senate in 1994, Jack's commitment to public service did not waver. He focused on reviving the St. Louis region, just as he had revived the Missouri Republican Party. He brought his talents to the international stage at a time of turmoil, appointed the United States ambassador to the United Nations, tirelessly working for those less fortunate and a stronger America. Never losing sight of the importance of his faith in God, he carried himself with dignity and conviction.
He was a tireless advocate for the poor and hungry around the world, and he was lauded by his colleagues as a beacon of moral clarity.
And still today, Jack Danforth continues to speak out for what he believes in, with a strong and sensible voice committed to public service, leadership, and what's best for our country.
It now is time for a clear expression on the part of Republicans that this whole populist strategy that we've been following is just plain wrong, and we're going to return to the Republican Party that is a responsible party, that is a conservative party. I believe in the Republican Party as it has been. I believe in the party of Lincoln. I believe in the party that tries to hold our country together. I believe in a party that stands for the Constitution. That, to me, is what conservatism is.
Former Senator John Danforth of Missouri, thank you very much.
Boys State, welcome Senator Jack Danforth.
Thank you, Senator, for being here. I have to tell you guys, 40 years ago tonight, I sat out there in Lewis City as a citizen, and Senator Jack Danforth spoke to Boys State. And we talk about this week being a week to shape a lifetime. That moment was the moment in the week when my lifetime was shaped. I was lucky enough to then go to Boys Nation, and I walked into the halls of Congress, and Senator Danforth met me in his office and greeted me and showed me around the Capitol. And ever since then, I've probably been in that building a couple hundred times and had numerous meetings with lots of senators and elected officials, but I'll never forget that very first meeting. So I hope tonight some of you will also find that spark.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, let's start. I want to start broad and big and positive. You've had this incredible career, Senate, ambassador, and then everything you've done since. What are several of the biggest highlights? What are the most poignant moments you can think of that will always stay with you in that incredible career?
So
I think this is going to sound maybe like it's contrived, but I really mean it. I left the Senate when I was 58 years old, and I left voluntarily. People say there are 3 ways to leave the Senate, and 2 have to do with leaving in boxes, and you don't want either of those. So I left voluntarily. And I left for the reason that I didn't want politics to totally define who I was. It was very important. I spent a lot of time in it. I spent 26 years in elective office. But I didn't want to just be, just the total politician. I wanted there to be a life after politics, and it was important. And I can really say that my family is more important to me than anything that I've done. And they know it. So I think that's the key. I think that if you're interested in politics, it's important to contain it and not have it just be all or everything. And I think this is what's gone wrong in politics now. It's as though politics has become so super important, and it's so permeated everything in American life that it's overdone. And so for people who think that politics is it, then they're willing to do anything for their own success. And maybe they think it's for a great cause, maybe it's saying, oh, well, gee, I'm doing something wonderful for humankind. But the willingness to destroy other human beings in order to propel yourself forward is, I think, very real in politics right now. So to me, what's the number one thing? It's making sure that I keep politics in its proper place and that it's not really the high point in my life.
Great, interesting. Yeah. So how, again, you have been outspoken in your later career. How is the Senate different today than it was when you served? What's the biggest difference, and does it matter?
Well, I had a phone call just a couple of weeks ago with a guy who was on my Senate staff, and this was maybe 40 years ago, a long time ago, and he still is in Washington, and he's had a number of government jobs and jobs that have interfaced with the Senate, so he has seen the Senate over a long period of time. And I said, how have things changed now? And his answer was, today people hate each other. I mean, think about that. They hate each other. And that really is a change. To think that politics, so it's kind of my first answer too, that it's so intense and all-consuming that you hate people. And this is what's going on in the country right now. I mean, there have been public opinion polls. After the 2016 election, something like a third of young people unfriended people on Twitter because they voted the wrong way. Unfriended them. In other words, if you're not with me politically, you're not my friend. That's a big deal, change in our country, and it's a big deal in the U.S. Senate. And it's one reason that the Senate now is dysfunctional. It really is dysfunctional because how do people come together to come to any kind of conclusion on anything if they hate each other? You don't have to agree. It's not agreement. It's just treating somebody like a human being and caring about that person. So I think that that's the big change.
Talk about, I know I certainly see with some of my clients, they literally will not speak to people in the other party. Talk about your relationship with somebody like who you wouldn't be in agreement with on policy, somebody like a Ted Kennedy. What kind of relationship did you have with Senator
good.
Kennedy?
No, on that civil rights legislation, that was back in 1991. I spent a couple of years dealing with Ted Kennedy, and it was wonderful because he was such a man of his word. Once you reached an agreement on a very difficult issues, contentious issues, once you reached an agreement, he just stood by it. But to me, the story that really stands out has to do with Tom Eagleton. Now, none of you remember Tom Eagleton. You probably don't remember me, to tell you the truth. But Eagleton, okay, so Tom Eagleton was a Democrat and a liberal, and I'm a Republican, and I'm more conservative. And we overlapped in the Senate for 10 years. He preceded me in the Senate. He was there before I got there, and I barely knew him. And so the night that I was sworn in, we had a little family party, and it was really just members of my immediate family, plus a handful of really, really close friends. And we invited Tom and Barbara Eagleton to that dinner. And again, I didn't know him, and he's other party, and we were going to serve together for 10 years in the Senate and disagree on just all kinds of stuff. And there was a quiet period during that dinner. Nobody was making any speeches, but there was a quiet period. And Eagleton turned to me and he said, "I know you wish your father were alive." Now, think about that as the start of a relationship. What he was saying to me is, I see you as a person, not as a politician, not as a political foe or somebody who will vote differently or somebody in the different party. I see you as a person who had a father who's not here. To me, that human aspect of politics is essential. And I really hope, and it's for all of you who are interested in politics and doing anything, or even if you're not just passively interested in politics, to treat other people as your friends, even if you don't know them very well. Just assume that they're your friends. Assume that they're good people. Just assume it. Because I think that this is absent now. It's absent on college campuses. It's absent all over the place, where if you don't agree with somebody, you get them. You just go out and get them and accuse them of all kinds of bad faith and say that you're this, that, or the other thing, and have no qualms about wrecking somebody's life in the name of politics. And it's just wrong. And the antidote to it is simply to turn to people who are different from you, don't agree with you, and say, "I'm your friend." The big deal. And that would transform not just politics, it would transform the country. And you're going to be tested this way in college. You really are, because the name of the game for a lot of people is to go through everything anybody has ever said and take it the wrong way, and then blow it out of proportion and attack and humiliate the person and call them out. And it's really bad, but you can overcome it, each one of you, just not only by not being a part of it, but by saying to somebody who's very different, maybe say you're a Democrat, so-and-so's a Republican, just say, "I'm your friend." Just that.
Picking up on that, I know you had a close colleague who ran statewide in Missouri, and a really tragic situation. I wonder if you might relay the story of Tom Schweik.
Well, so Tom Schweik was a younger man, and we had been law partners. And then when I became the special counsel in what was called the Waco investigation, which is a big deal investigation of a disaster in Waco, Texas, and he was my chief of staff. And then when I went to the UN, he was my chief of staff again. So I had this long relationship with Tom Schweik. And I never thought of him as being somebody who should be in elected politics, because he was hypersensitive, you know? I mean, he was just very, very hypersensitive to anybody who criticized him or anything. So he ran for state auditor and he won. And then he ran for re-election and he had either no opposition or almost no opposition, so he was easily re-elected state auditor. And he decided he wanted to run for governor. And so he did. He announced that he was going to run for governor. And then there was this campaign against him. Now, Tom was a little guy, small guy. And so there were these radio ads that were run against him that called him a little bug. And he took that to his heart. I think in politics, it's the kind of thing maybe you shouldn't take to your heart. But so he was a sensitive guy, and he did, and it hurt his feelings. And then to make it worse, there was a campaign, and it was a whispering campaign. And the campaign is Tom Schweik's Jewish. Now, why would anybody say that politically other than you're trying to appeal to bigotry, right? You're trying to win points in the right place. This happened, for example, in Joplin. You're trying to win points in the right place with bigots. And Tom thought, I've got to stand up to that. I just can't let this go unanswered. And I talked to him on the phone one day, and he said, I'm going to call in the press. I'm going to blast this. And I said, well, Tom, let somebody else do it. Don't, this will just make you the issue and not that the issue. But he felt so strongly about it, and I think he felt that when I told him, let somebody else do it, he thought I was leaving him, and abandoning him. And the next day he shot himself to death. And I wondered, was it that I wasn't rock solid for him? But that's what happened. And the moral of the story is, it's possible to destroy a person, People say, well, words can't kill. Yes, they can. He was killed by words. Yes, they can kill. And so I spoke at his funeral, and I said, no, we have got to stand up against this, We just have to. We just got to have to say we're in politics, we're just not going to take it. So it was a big deal as far as I was concerned.
Talk about some of the other positive role models. Who do you like today? Who in politics do you look to? Of course, besides looking in the mirror, but other than that, of course, that would be the best case. But besides that, who else do you think these guys can look to say, there's a role model I could get behind?
Wow. That's a stumper. I don't know.
It could be someone from the past, too.
Yeah. I think Roy Blunt is a terrific senator. And I'm sure there are others. You know, I've been out of the Senate so long that there are very few people who were there when I was there, so I'm not sure I know the cast of characters. I was a terrific admirer of Howard Baker, who was our Republican leader at the time. Howard had, among other good qualities, he had a wonderful sense of humor. And the butt of Howard Baker's jokes was Howard Baker. I mean, he wouldn't make fun of other people. He made fun of himself. That's the best kind of humor in politics, to make fun of yourself. And some of the people that I remember most fondly, Howard Baker, Bob Dole on our side, Russell Long, Pat Moynihan on the Democratic side, some of the people that I really thought were the best senators were the funniest senators. That's a big thing, you know. So what I hope for you is that when you're in politics, you laugh. Just try to find funny stuff. Now, I talked to a fellow who's still in the Senate, and I said, what's happened to the sense of humor? Because people don't laugh anymore. What's happened to the sense of humor? And he said, you know, people are afraid to be funny. They're afraid that if they say something ridiculous, which is a lot of humor, right? You say ridiculous stuff. If you say something that's ridiculous, then the person you're talking to will be recording it and will use it against you. How's that for a change? So yeah, I think some of the people, and also, you know, back in the day, I sound like, compared to the pictures of my youth, I am an old timer. but the people that I thought were really good in the Senate were people who could work things out. You know, the people who could say, okay, you know, so we've got these competing positions, what are we going to do? Just state the competing positions or try to reach some sort of accommodation, some kind of compromise. They were good. Those were the really good senators. Now that people say the base of the parties people don't want compromise. The message is, you compromise. If you're a Republican, you work with a Democrat, we're going to primary you. We're going to defeat you in the next primary election.
You've served with many presidents over the years. Do you have a favorite, and why?
Yeah, no, with four of them, and that when I was in the Senate, and then with W when I was his UN guy. I mean, Reagan was terrific. And he was, talking about funny people, he was really terrific. And Mike Deaver, who wrote a biography of him, said one thing about Reagan: people wanted to please him. Man, think about that. Somebody with the kind of personality, people just want to please you. That's kind of rare. I can think of politicians that almost nobody would want to please. But I think Reagan was, he had very strong views, but he was happy. He was a happy person.
I know recently, certainly the insurrection at the Capitol on January 6th, you were quite outspoken after that and had a few things to say about the other Missouri senator right now, Senator Hawley. What were your thoughts on January 6th?
Well, I'd spent 18 years of my life there, in the Senate chamber. There was one scene of people parading down a hallway and them knocking on a door. Well, that was my office door back in the day. So, you know, I mean, it was terribly shocking, particularly because I knew that place so well. But I believe that January 6th was one of the darkest days in the history of our country, and that it stands alone. I read in the paper, somebody said, well, no, 9/11, when the planes flew into the World Trade Center and more people were killed. But January 6th was different because that was that was internal, that was Americans attacking, and they weren't attacking a building, they were attacking the constitutional structure. They were attacking the constitutional system which makes it possible for us to keep this diverse country together. They were attacking the system. When you attack the legitimacy of an election and when you attack the legitimacy of a presidency, you are attacking the constitutional system. And that's why I thought that it was, I can't think maybe firing on Fort Sumter to start the Civil Wars, but I can't think of a darker day than January 6th, when people who should have known better and who claimed to be constitutionalists and constitutional scholars go out of their way to call into question the legitimacy of an election that was legitimate for some political purpose, and the result of it was the storming of the Capitol building, and the result lingers on because so many people still think, well, this election was stolen. It was not stolen. It was you could agree or disagree with the election of Biden, but it certainly was a fair election, and there is no evidence to the contrary, and to play that particular card is to cause great damage to America.
Talk about, again, you've seen change over time. Talk about race and gender in politics and how it's evolved and changed over since you were in the Senate and to the present. And is there hope for the future in those areas?
Well, so if you believe, as I do, that the great mission of our country is to hold us all together as one people, with one common commitment to one country, then when any part of our country feels left out or left behind, we have to attend to that. And so it is very important in connection with gender, which I think is, increasingly, there are more and more opportunities for women. And the point of that civil rights legislation in 1991 was to provide more opportunities for women. But with regard to African Americans, we do have a history of slavery, we do have a history of Jim Crow, and we do have a race of people who, by a lot of measures, income, health, life expectancy, housing, are behind the rest of the country. And so when that's the case, it's really important to attend to it. It's debatable as to how best to do that. There are different views on that. But it is very important for people who feel and for good reason that they've been left behind or that they are behind, to bring them up. So that's sort of the first part of my answer. The second part is this. I really believe that most Americans are good people, and that this is really a good country. And that our goal should be to evoke that goodness, to bring it out, to call it out from people, and to assume that people are good people, and not to call them names. And so I think a lot of times when people are called, racist or homophobic or whatever you would call people who are, not sensitive to women, I think you got to be careful in doing that, because I don't think it helps the cause of anything to paint with a very broad brush good people who would like to be part of the answer.
You spoke in the video of the Party of Lincoln. What do you mean by the Party of Lincoln? What is that, and can we get back to that as a party in this country?
So, the origin of my party, I'm a Republican. The origin of the Republican Party is the Union. The origin of the Republican Party is the Union. It is holding together the country at a time when it was breaking up. That was Lincoln. And so I think that's my party, and it has not been that lately, because it's played this populist thing, and everybody's against everybody, poor me, and they're picking on me, and they're picking on you, and should we feel sorry for ourselves, and blah blah blah. And it's the opposite of holding the country together. It's divisive. I think I've written this. I think that Trump was the most divisive president in our history, and it's the opposite of what I think of as my party. And then when you think of, so what's conservative? What do you mean by conservative? Well, there are a lot of ways to define, and conservatives generally believe in limited government and keeping taxes low and free trade and so on. They're sort of a cluster of things that conservatives believe in. But basically what conservatives believe in is the Constitution. I mean, it's the constitutional system, which means more than the Bill of Rights, the right to free press and so on and so forth. It means the structure that's created with the three branches of government that allows us to have all these different interests, and they come together in one place, and they can hopefully work out their differences, and that's how you hold the country together. So I believe that our party has traditionally been, and it is with regard to, for example, Supreme Court justices, keeping the structure as it was created to be, namely that which is capable of holding America together. And I think that when we attack the legitimacy of a presidency and the legitimacy of election, we're attacking the constitutional structure.
Also, again, you are a very spiritual person. You're an ordained minister. Talk about what you've seen as the role of religion in politics over the years and where it's come to, and maybe what role religion should play or shouldn't play in politics.
Okay, how long do you have? But look, so religion has the capacity to divide people, and it has been very divisive, and people to this day kill each other in the name of God. they believe God wants them to kill other people. So religion clearly has the power to divide, and the framers of our Constitution knew that, and that's why they created what Jefferson called the wall of separation between church and state. Keep religion out of politics. However, that's not to say that religious people are out of politics. What it does is to say that there's a difference between a religious agenda and a political system, and we've got to differentiate between the two. But I think that while religion can be divisive, it often has been and is very divisive, the root meaning of the word religion is the same as for the word ligament. It's to hold things together. And so religion, if it is championed by a lot of people, has the capacity to hold people together. How does it do that? What are a couple of ways that it does that? One way that it does that is simply to say, we're not God, you know? So if you think that you have the answer in politics and that your way is the only way, then that's idolatry. And particularly if you say that my way is God's way. That is idolatry. And so the message of religion should have within it a lot of humility, a lot of, hey, this is my opinion, you know. I'm not God, and I'm not creating an idol. It's my opinion. And once you see religion saying that, once you hear religion saying that, then it's more possible for people to work things out than if it's, you know, I'm for God, you're against God kind of a thing. And another message of religion is that, you know, humankind, you and I are created in the image of God. We are created in the image of God. You were created in the image of God. Donald Trump is created in the image of God. Bernie Sanders is created in the image of God. And so people with whom you disagree, you owe them the respect of being created in God's image. So religion has within it the capability to bind us together, but it has certainly been used to drive us apart.
I think what we want to do at this point, because this is your program and because I'm sure you have lots of very interesting questions for the Senator, I think we're going to go ahead and throw it open to Boys State to ask the Senator questions. I can't see anything, but are we out there, guys? All right. Do we have questions from the floor? If you go to the mic over there. Over here, if you can just tell us your Boys State city and ask away. Over here on our right.
Great.
Go ahead.
Hello, my name is MJ Wild. I'm from Blair City. My question is in regards to United States foreign policy in Israel. I was wondering to the Senator, do you believe Israel should get punished for perpetrating an apartheid state against Palestine? Why or why not?
Certainly not by the U.S., no. No, I mean, obviously people have lost their lives, so that would be considered, you know, punishment, but certainly not by the U.S. No, I mean, Israel is our ally, and we've got to make that clear. There should be no doubt about that.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to the other side where we still can't see.
My name is George Fries, and I'm from Gambrill City. And my question is, as the United States re-enters the world stage, both under new leadership and as the pandemic is starting to lessen in this country during this time of great division, how do we work as a society to come back together both within our country and globally, just to take a more comprehensive role in the world again?
Yeah. Well, within the country, I really have to say that I'm disappointed in Biden. I know him. I served in the Senate with him for 18 years, but I think that Biden at his best, and the Joe Biden I knew, was very good. He was a politician in the best sense of the word. He was good at working things out, and I don't see that now. I think that he's really operating on essentially a one-party basis, and that legislative ideas are more or less being handed down from the White House or from the White House through the congressional leadership. So there's no real functioning of the system, and particularly this is true, I think, in the Senate. The Senate used to be a place where you work things out, and I don't think that that's the case now. And I think one of the main things that could be done if we wanted to recreate a country that's capable of holding ourselves together is to restore what they call the regular order in the Senate. With regard to dealing with the rest of the world, clearly Biden has changed direction from the one Trump was on, and he's much more interested in rebuilding alliances and rebuilding relationships with other countries, and so I think that's very positive.
Great. This side again.
Senator Danforth, my name is Brian Kim. I'm a representative of Doniphan. And my question for you is, having been a member of the United Nations, the ambassador, what is the single most memorable moment that has profoundly impacted your perspective on global situations, and how can us as citizens of Missouri Boys States learn from your lessons?
Well, the United Nations is a very weak organization, and the only part of the UN that has any real power is the Security Council. But to get anything done in the Security Council, you have to overcome the vetoes of 5 countries, and is it 5 or 6? 5, I think. And so any resolution, there's a lot of wordsmithing, and they tend to be very, very weak resolutions. But I thought when I was there that the best thing that the UN could do was to focus attention on big issues, and we did that really successfully with regard to Sudan, because at that time the peace talks were going on in Sudan and nothing was happening. I mean, they just totally bogged down. And when we, the U.S., had the presidency, which it rotates every month, or the month we had it, we took the whole Security Council over to Nairobi, Kenya, and passed a resolution which didn't necessarily say very much, but the point was, here were the 15 countries of the Security Council standing there in Nairobi saying, where's the peace deal? I mean, come on, get with it. And that did have the effect of instigating or bringing about that Sudan peace agreement back then. Now things are sort of gone sour otherwise, but for a time that was something that was very successful. So I thought that the best part of the UN was to be a kind of a spotlight on trouble spots in the world.
Great.
Senator Danforth, earlier this year you stated that supporting Josh Hawley in his 2018 U.S. Senate run was, quote, the worst mistake you ever made in your life. To me, Josh Hawley has spent the last 2 years fighting for individual freedoms and the deregulation of businesses. Do you still stand by this statement, considering there's an ongoing audit in the state of Arizona, or do you still believe this based solely on Senator Hawley's objection to the 2020 presidential election result? Thank you.
Well, I think I think we have differences of opinion. Yeah, I thought that I do believe that he convened the event of January the 6th. And he was the one person in the Senate who said, I'm going to object. And he did, and then others followed along after he broke the ice. But I thought he was the convener of the worst day in American history. And that he did call into question the election. He did spread the word that the election would be decided on January 6th, which he knew better than that. And so I view him as the creator of the darkest day in our history.
Okay. I'm told that the balcony has a question. Are you there, balcony?
Yeah, one second, please.
Don't fall.
My name is Bentley Talbert. I'm a citizen of Richardson City. My question, you being such a long life Republican and kind of talking about how we are stalled right now as a party, what do you see that we could do, and what do you kind of see as the future of the party?
I go to bed at night wondering about it, and I wake up in the morning wondering about it, and I wish I knew the answer to it. I think we're on the wrong course now, and I would hope that people would run for office as Republicans, as more what I would call traditional Republicans rather than Trump-type Republicans. But we are certainly on the defensive right now, and I wish it weren't true. I think that the result of what's happening now is that we will be losing big time. I mean, Trump lost in the popular vote in 2016. He lost it by 3 million votes. He lost the popular vote in 2020 by 7 million votes. That's going in the wrong direction. He then got involved in the Georgia primaries. There's no way that we should have lost 2 seats in Georgia. No way that we should have lost the majority in the U.S. Senate. We did, because he made it all about him and his grievances and his attack on the governor and so on, the Secretary of State and so on. So he blew it, and I think if we continue to keep ourselves coupled to this Trump bandwagon, which is in the ditch, we will have a very bad result, and maybe that's the necessary precursor of restoring the party.
I think we're back over here.
Senator Danforth, it's a real honor. My name is Logan Coleman. I'm representing Whitfield City, and my question to you is, because of your extensive experience in public office, obviously you've had a different perspective on holding such a public position than the common populace. What common misconceptions about public workers and public servants do you think the common public have that you would be able to dispel?
I'm not sure I heard it.
So, having seen public servants in action,
yeah.
what are the common misconceptions you think regular people have about public servants that you could potentially dispel?
I don't know that there is a common view of them. I think when you interface with them, when you have some interaction, you're counting on them, to do a good job. I think that there are an awful lot of people who are public servants who really do a good job. I know particularly, visiting, like I spent a lot of time traveling around Africa. The kind of people who work in our embassies are amazing. Their language skills are absolutely amazing. I mean, to be in Senegal and to hear a Foreign Service officer speak some language, what is that? And what is that language? Oh, it's called Wolof. I mean, it's just an amazing thing. So I think that obviously in any line of work, there are people who are more competent than other people. But I think that, there are just a ton of people who are in public service who are really good at it.
Okay, I think we've got time for one or two more over here again.
Good evening, Senator. My name is Cody Salka, a citizen from the city of Whitfield. In your opinion, what is the best route for someone our age to get into the field of politics today?
Just do it. And here's the thing. I don't know. I can't predict it for you, and it depends on the individual, and it also depends on what's going on at the time and what's open and so on and so forth. But I think that the one thing to think about is, let me say two things to think about. One is, how do you feel about losing? What would that do to you? Could you do that?
I feel like losing makes you stronger.
Good. Okay. So you're the man. And then the other thing is, okay, so you get into politics, and sort of what I've been talking about earlier, and you almost have this messianic sense. Wow, I'm here, and I am just going to absolutely change the world. I mean, this is going to be something else. And in fact, you don't. I mean, the world goes on, and you can spend years working on something and think, gee, I passed legislation. I've done this. And then at the end you think, have I made things better? Really? Or have I moved the ball maybe a yard down the field? And I think that's more realistic, that I think politics is really worth doing, but understand that you're going to move the ball a yard, not 50 yards. And that there are going to be other people who are involved in this process, this Republican form of government, this process where all these interests are sort of one big stew, and you're trying to work things out. And the key is a country which can keep itself together, not necessarily achieve one policy result, but simply keep itself together. A lot of that is respecting other people. So I'd say, be willing to lose and understand that. I'll tell you a little story about, I almost lost my re-election in 1982. I ended up getting it back and winning it, but during that I'm sure I was upset, and I thought my whole future is going down the tube, and this is awful, and blah, blah. And my then 15-year-old daughter, Dee Dee, I think she was feeling sorry for the old guy and knew that I was nervous about it all. And she tried to buck me up, and the way she did it was say, well, Dad, it's not the World Series. And that's the way I think, You've got to realize you're totally focused on it, winning, losing, and so on, but it's not the World Series. It's just politics.
Did we have another from the balcony?
Yes, we do if we have time for one more.
All right. We'll give the balcony the last word, almost.
Thank you, Senator. Jalen Lee from Richardson City. I want to ask you, after a lifetime of success and many hardships, what words could you give us to keep us going through those hardships?
Well, thanks. What a great question. Just keep at it, and from the standpoint of living in America, have we had problems? Yes. Have we done awful? Do we have awful things in our legacy? Awful things in our legacy. But this is a great country. And it is possible to move forward, maybe not 50 yards at a time, but it is possible to make this a better country and a more just country and a more successful country, and to hold out hope for more and more people. It is possible. And so I think just try, that's my suggestion. That's the word that I would leave you with. Try. And maybe you'll succeed and maybe you won't. But the key is just try. So, thanks. Thank you.
Senator, I think on behalf of this group, I want to thank you for your candor, for your inspiration, for the many, many, many lifetimes you've helped shape, and for your great service to this country.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, everybody.
And I think Brad's going to thank you again.
And Senator, we do have one last tradition and piece of business before we end the evening. The words that you provided our young men are as important as anything that our counseling staff will be able to impart this week. I'm so thankful for you to kick us off the way that you have. And if you're willing, I'd like to make you an honorary member of the Missouri Boys State staff.
Great. How about an honorary boy?
No, I don't know. You got a lot of work to do. But I do want to
Thank you. Thanks.
Come on here.
Thanks, everybody.
He wants a picture.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah. That was a big moment for me. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Okay.
Great job.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, I know you'll agree with me. What an incredible way to start this week, right? Yeah. What you just saw is an example of a deep, deep patriotism, right? Just a thoughtful approach to leadership, right? A commitment to dignified discourse about the issues facing our country. And someone who literally has spent his life serving his state and his nation, right? And I hope is you now, okay, embark on your journey at Boys State, right? Well, you will take on your own leadership roles. You'll get in your own debate, right? You'll disagree with other folks in the other party. I hope you remember the example that you got to experience this week and help that guide you in how you will approach your own journeys as the future leaders of our state and our country. Okay? And we got a lot of work to do, and it starts now. Okay? So I'm going to release you to your city areas where you're going to get started establishing Missouri Boys State as soon as we finish tonight. Thank you so much for an incredible evening. Great questions. Have an incredible week. Thank you. You're dismissed.